8-year-old, 9-year-old, 14-year-old Gina DeJesus never made it home.
It's a family's worst nightmare. A son, a daughter, a loved one.
We're doing everything we possibly can to help you.
Gone without a trace. America's Most Wanted has brought justice and hope to families across America, helping to bring more than 65 missing children home.
Thanks to some tipsters, Elizabeth Smart was recovered alive.
Now we carry that legacy forward with a single mission: to bring the missing home.
This hole in my heart where Chelsea's supposed to be.
We've assembled a team to lead the search, boots on the ground. From America's Most Wanted, Callahan Walsh.
She doesn't even know that she's a missing child.
Gabby Petito's father, Joe Petito.
Those of you that continue to support Seth, we appreciate you. As most of you know, we had a special guest planned for tonight. I had reached out to Joe Petito about a week ago and asked him if he would like to come on and support Seth and Sebastian and talk about Gabby's foundation. And of course, he was, as always, glad to do that, glad to help, and appreciated us asking him to do so.
Unfortunately,
I
got a phone call this morning. I guess there's some vile people in the world that, still don't want me to find my son, still putting up opposition, and decided to be, that bad portion of humanity and threaten somebody. So, unfortunately, I understand. I don't want him and his family to suffer from anything. So, I just think it's really vile that people can still do that. I just want to find my son.
So I talked to Seth this morning, asked him specifically what Joe had said. He said that Joe had told him that he had been threatened. His family had been threatened. His foundation had been threatened. I had no reason not to believe Seth, but I also wanted to talk to Joe myself. So I reached out to Joe, and I apologized to Joe for anything he was experiencing on our behalf, asked him more specifically what it was that had happened. And he said that he was threatened to have his personal information put out there, and Gabby's foundation was actually threatened as well. So we're not going to dig any deeper into that. I just would like to say that it saddens me that anybody would threaten his family or his foundation. But Joe, if you're listening or you hear this, again, apologies on my behalf and Seth's behalf that you had to experience that. I'm blown away that there are people that are that determined to keep two grieving fathers from connecting, but we're not going to give that any more airtime, nor are we going to call people out specifically.
Car was parked literally right here.
True crime podcaster Payne Lindsay.
Somebody needs to be asked some hard questions.
Former undercover detective Derek Lavasser.
Maybe someone out there can do something.
And survivor and advocate Elizabeth Smart.
I'm here because you deserve your brother back home.
Working with investigators and listening to families.
Why would he take the van? Why would he take my phone?
There's no more waiting. Tonight, we're going to find them.
Someone knows something.
This little girl is still out there.
We need your eyes. We need your voice.
We're one tip away from changing the course of this case.
We need your help.
It's a missing piece to the family.
I miss my son.
We were given information that you guys have left the home. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
I'm going back to work.
You're going back to work. What about you, Miss Proudfoot?
No, I'm not going back to work. Not yet, at least.
Did you leave the home also, Miss Proudfoot?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
To accompany my husband going back to work, and then I'm coming back.
Okay, when will you be back? Do you know yet?
No, not yet.
Are you concerned about being away while the search is ongoing?
Absolutely, I am.
Then why are you going?
because my son could be anywhere, and we're looking everywhere and anywhere.
You very often look away, don't look at who's asking you questions, show no emotion. Much has been made of that, and I'd like to hear your response. I'm not judging one way or the other. I'd like to hear your response.
To the fact of not looking at the camera all the time is because a picture of my son is sitting beside me, and I'm looking at him. As far as the crying thing, I have been crying off and on nonstop for a month.
Good evening. I'm Harris Faulkner, and this is America's Most Wanted Missing Persons, a new show following the lead of the iconic true crime series. We have one mission: to bring missing loved ones home. Every person you'll see on this screen tonight has someone waiting for them: a parent, a child, a friend, a community that refuses to give up.
Actions are going to speak much louder than words, and the message from Dog and I is that we're not slowing down. We will find Sebastian, and if Sebastian is watching, our message is we are coming for you. We are going to find out what happened to you. Everybody responsible will face justice, and they will be tried. We're in it for the long run, and we will bring Sebastian home. If you're watching this, Sebastian, we are coming for you. And if you get access to a phone, dial 911.
Tell them who you are. Tell them you're Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, and that your daddy is looking for you, and that you are wanted by a lot of people.
You have a lot more than friends. There are millions that are waiting to welcome you home.
We, on behalf of Seth and myself, we appreciate all you and At Night and Dog and your entire team is doing. It's funny how when you go through the toughest times in life, God puts people in your lives at those times for the right reasons. I look back to the first phone call that I had with you and Dog, and I'll be 80 in a nursing home and probably never forget that phone call. But it was the prequel to probably a long relationship. And, we are grateful to have you supporting Seth, looking for Sebastian. We're grateful to have you as a friend, and we certainly appreciate all you guys are doing.
Yeah, I speak for Dog and I both. We never saw this turning into a friendship or now family. We consider you guys brothers. It's the first phone call. It was something for a comedy one day when we bring Sebastian home and he can hear it. And it's something that's interesting. You guys deserve the world behind you. If people just read between the lines, it's not hard to figure out what's up, what's not. Form your own opinions, but at least have an educated opinion. I ask that from the public. Unity will bring us to not just together, but it'll bring Sebastian home. We don't have to agree at all, but we can bring Sebastian home if the unity stays there. It builds, and we're not the only side is Team Sebastian, and that is Mr. Rogers' side. That is Mr. Rogers' Team Sebastian. We are Team Sebastian, and we are going to bring Sebastian home, whether it's us, whether it's the FBI, whether it's TBI, whether it's Sumner County. Somebody is going to bring Sebastian home. There are countless people on the case, and we're not going anywhere.
And neither will we. We've assembled a team of experts who dedicated their lives to solving cases and helping others. Derek Levasseur. You may know him from Big Brother, but he also has worked undercover with the FBI, DEA, and Secret Service. Elizabeth Smart, a survivor and advocate whose abduction recovery was made possible through America's Most Wanted. Payne Lindsay, whose investigative true crime podcast, Up and Vanished, has brought cold cases back into the national spotlight. And tonight's special guest, Callahan Walsh, a familiar face to America's Most Wanted. Callahan does incredible work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Thank you so very much, everyone, for joining us. Let's get to our first case now. A missing child, Sebastian Rogers. On February 25th, 2024, Sebastian's mother said goodnight to her 15-year-old son. The next morning, Sebastian was gone.
Hey, missing juvenile. Me and white male, 3 blonde hair, approximately 5 foot. I'm going to turn down. I was going to be wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants. Female does have a form of autism.
Just going around.
Sebastian is tall and skinny, has a contagious smile, loves video games, loves cats.
Sebastian's love for cats is so strong that still to this day, when me and his mom started dating, they had cats. And I am allergic to cats. So mom made the choice. They got rid of the cats so we could reject them and keep our life moving forward together. And still to this day, Sebastian will never let me live it down.
Boundless amounts of energy. Sebastian reminds me of a deer prancing through the woods, you know, enjoying the smell, the breeze, new things. That's my son.
February 25th, the day before Sebastian went missing, Chris was in Memphis at work.
Chris wants to tell you, he wants to tell you, everyone listen, myself and anyone who will listen, that the reason he didn't get home till 1:30 or 2, leaving the job site at 11, I don't know if he specifically said 11, but he probably did, was because no one was there to relieve him. BS. He was off. On the same day, his stepson goes missing.
So Sebastian and I went to Texas Roadhouse. After dinner, right around 9 o'clock, he laid down. I heard a noise in his room. I said, I don't care what you're doing, but you gotta knock it off and you gotta go to bed. And he answered, yes, ma'am. And I said, okay.
So that night you go to bed at midnight after you've been talking to Mr. Proudfoot on the phone. Earlier you had stated you heard a noise in his room before you went to bed. What time was that?
Around 10 o'clock.
10 p.m. What did it sound like?
Just a thud.
A thud. You stated that you said, look, I don't care what you're doing in there, go to bed. Is that right?
I was on the couch, which is near his room, and I said, Bubba, did you fall out of the bed? And he said, no, ma'am. And I said, well, whatever you're doing in there, knock it off and go to sleep. 10 o'clock, told him to go to bed. And he said, come out of his room where he was playing. He said, all right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. Love you. And went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise and I was like, I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. And that was the last time that I spoke with Sebastian.
After you find out that it's going to take some time for him to get into online schooling, what was the communication with Chris and Katie from there?
I let him know, and then all of a sudden they're talking about sending him to a facility and everything.
Gotcha. So it sounds like they didn't want to wait.
The next morning, when I went in his room, he wasn't in his bed. After a minute or two, when I couldn't find him, I called Chris and I said, I can't find Sebastian. He's not in the house.
They were at their wits' end with Sebastian's behavior. Yep. They approached Seth. They asked Seth, hey, can Sebastian come live with you? Seth, to my understanding, you say, I would love to have him, but with my work schedule right now, I can't be home at the times I need to be home. Can you hang on to him for a year so I can get my schedule together?
Well, he was already in school. I got off of work and I had a text message from Sebastian's stepfather.
I said, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but Sebastian's missing.
They went through the business of Katie calls Chris calls the sheriff. And then when all those calls were made, then they reach out to you for the first time.
The text was at 6:22. From my understanding, they called the sheriff's office at like 6:33. So,
Seth, what was the first thing that Chris said to you on the phone? What was the very first thing he said?
Don't be mad. I headed straight over to their house.
How did that go?
It wasn't a conversation on where Sebastian could be. It wasn't a conversation on what he could be going through. It was a conversation about what Chris's mom's, what jewelry she wanted. with jewelry she wanted Chris to buy her on their next vacation trip.
I started driving through the neighborhood. I was panicking. I was looking everywhere. Like, where is he? What happened? Did he go with someone? Did someone take him? By the time I pulled into the school, Christopher was already telling me to turn around because the authorities were on their way.
And again, 30 minutes ago, she just learned that her son's missing. No window down. All for show right there. Yep.
They used helicopters, they used drones, they used ATVs, horseback.
An extensive search didn't yield one significant lead or even a glimpse of the boy on any doorbell cam video. Days later, investigators combed through a landfill, still saying they had found nothing.
We have nothing. We just have speculations. Law enforcement's been criticized. We get criticized.
You are making yourself unlikable. You are making yourself untrustworthy, shady, not to be trusted.
As the father gets criticized.
Online sleuths are really analyzing videos and creating their own theories.
Sebastian is putting something in his pocket.
Surveillance footage from a neighbor shows two people outside of Sebastian's house that night. Something happened.
Tonight marks 1 year since Sebastian Rogers disappeared near Beach High School in Sumner County.
My life is not the same without my son. He's not here, and he's somewhere. Someone has him.
This year has been the worst nightmare I could have imagined to come alive.
And he has all sorts of confidence. Going on TV live saying, oh, you're not going to find him. How do you know we're not going to find him? If you know something, let us know. For you to say something like that, I know you can't sleep at night because you know what happened. Like, come on. You go on national television, lie after lie after lie. Over here saying, oh, like, TBI won't let us go out to search for your son, or get on Nancy Grace saying, oh, we communicated with the police. We helped and everything. What did you do? Because it sounds like for the past 7 months is you went in an RV to vacation, came back and shot for a Harley, and the day that says you guys can't leave the house, you guys went to a fancy restaurant and dined out. And
Just wants whoever has him, just give him back. It's my son.
Wow, that dad. You can feel it. So we want to talk about theories now, Payne, and what might have happened with Sebastian. What are your thoughts?
I mean, here's his house. They searched miles outside of that neighborhood for days. Helicopters on the ground. They even drained a lake. He's nowhere. I don't think Sebastian would have gone outside on his own. There's someone else involved here. Somebody who was familiar to him. But
Sebastian went to school one day because we were at the house. He got in trouble. He didn't have a belt on. I was like, where's your belt? And got it. Whack. Kind of got him. So he goes to school and he tells the teacher. They're mandatory reporters. So the teacher reports it. That afternoon, CPS shows up to the house. Sebastian thought by telling on me, making it sound like I was so horrible that I was going to get in trouble over something stupid. And I was like, no, Sebastian, you got punished, man. You got punished. And he was like, but, and I was like, you got punished. And the lady took him outside. She goes, Sebastian, just because you get in trouble and you get punished, you need to understand when you go and you say things about people and you lie and you fabricate things and you make it sound worse than what it is, sir, you can get in trouble for that.
It appeared to me, in my opinion, to be a retaliation for that report getting filed, that they weren't going to wait, 4 or 5 more months. They were going to go ahead and send him off, November, December.
A stranger to everyone else. We also have to consider he could have left on his own volition.
Him telling me that my son was missing, my son has never been an eloper. He's never been one to go missing. Never have I ever had the phone call ever that my son was missing.
We know children on the autism spectrum tend to wander. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, nearly half of all children on the autism spectrum will go missing at some point from their environment.
Wow.
But I think something caused him to flee his home.
The case, especially within the first 48 hours, was just shrouded with the belief that he was a runaway. And that's, that was a huge hindrance, obviously.
That into the open arms of a predator, or was there a roaming predator that just happened to see Sebastian walking down through the neighborhood?
I don't think he left the house on his own.
Well,
I don't see how he walks out the front door, the back door, any other door, and dogs don't hit on a scent that is that fresh.
And to me, one thing that stands out is his shoes. He always wore his shoes, according to his mom.
As soon as I walked in, I remember walking up to the stairs, nobody saying anything. I opened the door, I walked in. The first thing I looked down at the left, and there was Sebastian's shoes. There was his old pair of tennis shoes, his new pair of tennis shoes that he just got, and the boots that I had just bought him. And it's like, well, all of his shoes are here. That's when I was like, why is his shoes over here? If he ran away, wouldn't he have shoes on? And I mean, it was just.
And what was her response to that?
She didn't respond to that at all. Neither did law enforcement.
Yeah. She shared a story that as a younger boy, he walked through a pile of dirt, turned out to be a bed of fire ants, and he had a thing about always wearing his socks and shoes.
Would he ever leave barefoot? I know that's something that's perplexed some people, and even people who have children on the autism spectrum have been perplexed by that. Does that make any sense?
It doesn't. It does not make any sense. If he knew he was going to go out walking or anywhere in the yard or whatnot, he would put on socks and shoes. He had a horrible experience as a child with fire ants. He learned. It's always socks and shoes, or at least something on your feet to protect you from what's on the ground.
Can't think that a 15-year-old child would get up in the middle of the night and leave without his shoes.
I would think that most of those homes have some Ring doorbell cameras. I would just be shocked if there's not a trail of cameras.
There's more cameras in that neighborhood than there are in the fucking jail.
There's this runaway theory that they went with right away. If he did run away, we would see him walking out of a house, I would believe, somewhere. The fact that there's nothing would indicate that somebody took precautions to make sure that he wasn't on camera.
In February, it's cold. So for me, that says that someone has come and taken him, or someone else is involved. Someone knows something. And as easy as it is to be like, oh, that could never happen, like your bedroom is the safest place in the world. Well, no, bedrooms are not the safest place in the world. I was taken from my bedroom. It can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
So when you consider what you just said, Elizabeth, and according to Katie, that night, she goes to bed, he goes to bed, then around 10 p.m., there's a bump or a thud.
So that night you go to bed at midnight after you've been talking to Mr. Proudfoot on the phone, and you go to bed. Did you check on Sebastian at that time?
I did not.
Okay. Do you normally?
Not typically. Since he's gotten older, I've not been checking on him as frequently throughout the night because normally he's good to go in his room once he goes to bed.
Earlier, you had stated you heard a noise in his room before you went to bed. What time was that?
Around 10 o'clock.
10 p.m. What did it sound like?
Just a thud.
Your son had some type of brain ailment that you guys learned of, either fluid on the brain or...
He had a pocket of fluid on the right bilateral part of his brain. It's been there since he was born.
Mm-hmm.
You have to watch him, make sure he doesn't suffer any head injuries or anything like that. It was too big for them to put a
stent.
A stent. It was too. It was not big enough to put a stent in, but still big enough to actually cause damage. If he had, that's why I didn't want him in football.
Right.
I didn't want him putting on a helmet and going, head first into something, because anything that might cause damage to his head is not something like I want my buddy to be safe.
When you heard Katie indicate that there was a potential thud coming from his room with the knowledge of his head injury, how does that make you feel?
If I had heard it in my house, I'd have been in my son's room to find out what was going on. If I hear any kind of strange noise coming out of his room, wherever room he happened to be in, any room, period, I'm going to go find out what that noise is, verify, see what's going on. The fact that she would say that there was that type of noise and not go check on him, to me, is not proper parenting.
Based on your knowledge of your son's behaviors, do you believe he would have left the house in the middle of the night?
For him to leave and not have his shoes, coat, take his switch or his phone, stuff that I know that he went with him if he was going to run away, no. But for him to leave without shoes or anything else on there, the situation would have to be severe enough for him not to be able to grab that stuff.
A thud. You stated that you said, look, I don't care what you're doing in there, go to bed. Is that right?
I was on the couch, which is near his room, and I said, Bubba, did you fall out of the bed? And he said, no, ma'am. And I said, well, whatever you're doing in there, knock it off and go to sleep.
So you heard his voice at 10 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
She calls out to him. He says, I'm fine. Yes, ma'am. I'll start moving. And then that's the end of it. And according to her, when she went to bed, the doors were locked. And when she woke up, the doors were locked. Were the windows locked?
What do you think about that thud noise that she described, the rustling that was going on? I thought about it. I've looked at the house. His room is on the first floor, right? So his window is accessible from the outside?
It would be, I believe, but I know law enforcement went around the house and stated that none of the windows or screens had been tampered with. So as for the thud, I don't know what she would classify as a thud. If I heard something in his room I know I'd go check on him, just because I want to make sure he's okay. He's got a medical condition that would definitely mean I need to go check on him just to make sure he's okay.
It's a big question. Were they secure? Because if they weren't, it could mean one of two things. That thud, him responding, was someone else in there with him?
Or someone was with him and going.
Exactly.
So I do want to bring up this home security camera footage. This looks like foot traffic right in here.
Yeah, if you look at the footage here, you can see subject number 1, allegedly, right? It looks like something that's illuminated, which, by the way, we haven't mentioned it yet. According to Katie, there was a flashlight that Sebastian liked using that was missing.
And Mama herself says, oh, a flashlight's missing. Again, that's such an odd thing for her to know is missing until they show her video that looks like a flashlight. And then the stepdad says, well, we were sure hoping it was, but we're sad to report it wasn't a flashlight. Well, if you've got 2 flashlights out there, why are you glad that it's not that? That, to me, would signify that somebody was out there in the wee hours of the morning with 2 flashlights, meaning 2 separate people, the night your child went missing. It's just odd.
So you consider that, it does look like 2 people holding flashlights.
Yes, that paints a picture that is Foul play.
Yes.
So I want to help the public now. We want to find Sebastian.
You mean to tell me everything that's tragic in your life, you don't ever stop? You lose somebody in your life, and all you do is you just sit there and have the negative times. And when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. But when you die, the world cries and you rejoice.
What do you say to people, Elizabeth?
First of all, to the 16-year-olds of the country, the high school age, really, if you know someone who looks like Sebastian, if you know something about Sebastian, tell your parents, call into the show, call the police, report it. This might be the break that we need. To the parents, if you have seen a 16-year-old boy that looks like Sebastian, do not be afraid to pick up the phone and call.
There is a $50,000 reward.
At Night Private Intelligence Agency, a reward has been increased, offering leads and information to both Summer Wells and Sebastian, and terms and conditions now apply. And they're very clear what those terms and conditions are related to the reward. So nobody can mistaken what this is. This case needs to be solved. Both of these cases are solvable cases. Both of these cases, in my opinion, have very similar situations, parties involved, everything. But I think it was Don and Candace. Whatever happened to Summer, they both know, and I think Chris and Katie both know what happened to Sebastian. Just in my opinion. And for the rest of my life, while I'm an American citizen, I'm entitled to that. And I'm entitled to vocalize that as well. Contact 911 or authorities first. Night Media is completely responsible for this now $500,000 reward. They're not pulling back the reward. Actually, they increased it and they added Summer Wells to the pool of money as well. I don't know how that works, with the two of them. Was it $250,000 a piece? Is it $500,000 a piece? I mean, that's a lot. So when you're increasing rewards like that, you have to put some, some rules and regulations in place so there is no misunderstanding or anything being misconstrued, because this is a legal situation, right? They're saying if you do XYZ, you will be eligible for this reward. So I think it's much, much clearer. I know people may want to try to twist it and turn it the way they want to turn it and run a narrative, their narrative that they would like to run. But at the end of the day, I think it is very crystal clear on how to get this money if you have information.
To help find him. Sebastian Rogers was about 5'5" when he was last seen, and he wears glasses. Sebastian is not comfortable with strangers.
If you're someone from this small town and you're in this neighborhood, check your cameras. There might be someone sitting on some doorbell cameras footage. I bet you he's in this small town in Tennessee.
Wow, that's an interesting theory.
But this isn't the most rural area in the world. We're not talking about out in the Rocky Mountains. This is a neighborhood
There's
where
a highway going this way.
There's high foot traffic everywhere, and still no sign of him.
Wow. Thank you to our team of experts. And you all know our purpose is to examine these cases and give people watching information so they can bring the missing home. And I want to thank Callahan. I'm so glad that you're with us right now. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
And that is fantastic.
Good luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you.